Some mysteries aren't buried underground. They're filed in the wrong drawer, sewn into fabric, written in symbols no one can read, or carved into stone long after the language is dead. Tonight, you'll hear 8 real cases where a message stayed silent for decades, sometimes centuries, until one person, one pattern, or one breakthrough made it speak. A queen's lost cipher letters, miscatalogued for generations. A Victorian dress hiding a note that looked like nonsense, until someone proved it was actually data. A secret society manuscript that sat unread for more than 260 years. A Holy Roman Emperor's coded letter, cracked nearly 500 years later. A private diary written in code to hide the most personal truths. A wartime telegram that helped steer America into World War I. An ancient script finally proven to be Greek after thousands of years. And one broken stone that unlocked an entire civilization's writing. These aren't urban legends. They're real decoded mysteries. And each one ends with the same question. How many messages are still out there, waiting for someone to finally understand them? Case 1. Mary, Queen of Scots. The Lost Letters. For centuries, a set of letters sat inside a French National Archive, cataloged in a way that kept them invisible to most historians. They weren't famous. They weren't displayed. They were simply there. Until codebreakers working through archive cipher material realized something important. These letters weren't just encrypted. They were written with a sophistication that suggested the author had lived a life where secrecy wasn't optional. It was survival. The letters turned out to be connected to one of the most watched prisoners in European history, Mary, Queen of Scots. Researchers identified 57 encrypted letters, mostly written between 1578 and 1584 during her captivity in England. And here's the part that makes it feel unreal. A large portion of those letters, roughly 50, were unknown to historians before the cipher was cracked, because the decoding didn't just translate words, it revealed identity. The letters were largely addressed to Michel de Castelnau, the French ambassador in England. And inside them, Mary writes like someone trying to keep control of her own story while locked behind other people's decisions. Health, confinement, trust, politics, and the strange math of survival. Who she can rely on, who she can't, who might already be bought. One of the key clues that helped confirm the context was the mention of Walsingham, Elizabeth I's spy master, a name that instantly places the letters inside a world of interception, surveillance, and invisible war. Because if Walsingham's network was watching, then Mary's words weren't just secrets, they were evidence. And that's the uncomfortable edge to this discovery. Those letters were not just lost history. They were hidden history, not sealed in a tomb, not buried under stone, just misfiled, mislabeled, and unread for centuries, which leads to a sharper question than, what did she write? If Mary, Queen of Scots cipher letters could sit unnoticed that long, how many other voices have been stored in plain sight, just under the wrong name? Next case. A message hidden in clothing, written like nonsense. Until the decoding proved it was something nobody expected. Case 2. The silk dress cryptogram. This one begins with an object that looks harmless. A 2-piece Victorian bustle dress from the 1880s. Beautiful, expensive, the kind of garment that survives because someone cared enough not to throw it away. In 2013, a collector examined the dress and noticed something unusual: a hidden pocket sewn into layers of fabric in a way that was easy to miss unless you were looking carefully. Inside that pocket were crumpled pieces of paper. The writing looked like a list of strange words, almost meaningless. Not a diary, not a letter, not anything you'd expect to find inside clothing. For years, the note was treated like a mystery code. People tried to solve it like a puzzle, but it didn't behave like a normal cipher until someone finally recognized what it really was. Not a secret confession, not a spy message, not romance. It was compressed information, the kind of language used when every character costs money. The decoding showed it matched telegraphic weather codes, the kind used to transmit weather observations cheaply by telegram. Instead of writing full reports, you'd send coded words that represented temperature, wind direction, precipitation, data packed into short phrases. The decoded content pointed to weather observations from 1888 across multiple locations. And even after the code was solved, the story didn't close, because the question changed. Now it wasn't, "What does it say?" It was, "Why would anyone hide weather data inside a dress? And who was the dress connected to?" Because the dress itself carried a stitched name, Bennett, a clue that still raises more questions than answers. It's one of the cleanest examples of why decoded mysteries work so well. The decoding gives you a satisfying reveal, but it also creates a second mystery that feels even more personal. Someone put that note there, and they expected it to stay hidden. So the real question is, was this simply a strange keepsake? Or was the dress being used as a place to hide something that mattered to someone in the early days of forecasting? Next case, a manuscript full of symbols so dense it stayed unread for over 260 years, until computers and linguists cracked it. Case 3. The Copiale Cipher. If you want a perfect decoding story, this is one of the best. A bound manuscript, over 100 pages, filled with symbols. Some look like invented characters. Some are Greek letters. Some are Roman letters. But none of it reads like a language. For more than 260 years, it was essentially a locked room in paper form. Then, in 2011, an international research team decrypted it with computer assistance and linguistic work. And the content wasn't random. It was a text written in German, describing rituals and initiation practices of a secret society, a group sometimes described as oculists, linked to eye examinations and symbolic seeing. Though the manuscript is larger than one simple theme, the decoding changed the meaning of the object instantly. Before, a curiosity. After, a historical artifact that documents how secret groups tried to preserve identity and secrecy inside symbols. The cipher wasn't just hard. It was intentionally designed to mislead. Multiple alphabets, dummy symbols, a structure meant to confuse. So the mystery isn't only the message, it's the mindset. What kind of group hides its rituals like state secrets? What were they afraid of? Or were they simply obsessed with the idea that knowledge is power, and power must be controlled? Because once you decode a manuscript like this, you don't just learn what it says. You learn what the writers believed about the world. Next case. A ruler's personal secret code, cracked nearly 500 years later, revealing paranoia that may not have been paranoia at all. Case 4. Charles V's secret letter, decoded. Engues 1547, Holy Roman Emperor. Charles V wrote a letter to his ambassador, Jean de Saint-Maury. Parts of it weren't written in plain language. They were written in a private code. Dense symbols, substitutions, tricks designed to defeat anyone intercepting the message. For nearly 500 years, it worked. Then researchers cracked it, and what they found wasn't a casual diplomatic note. It was a window into fear. The decoded content revealed Charles V's anxiety about political threats, reports and tensions that suggested assassination plots and instability, even after peace treaties that should have calmed the situation. That's what makes this case gripping. A coded letter feels like a spy story, but when you decode it, it becomes psychological, because you're hearing the voice of one of Europe's most powerful men, acting like someone who believes the ground under him is not stable. And when power feels unstable, paranoia becomes policy. So decoding this wasn't just solving a puzzle. It was recovering a moment where a ruler was writing as if someone might kill him. Which leads to the real mystery. Was Charles V overreacting? Or was the code hiding a fear that history simply didn't preserve in plain writing? Because if the message had been readable in 1547, it might not have survived at all. Next case. A diary written partly in code, not to hide politics, but to hide a life. Case 5. Anne Lister's Secret Diaries. Anne Lister wrote thousands of pages of diary entries in the early 19th century. But parts of those diaries were not meant for everyone. They were written in code, a private system used to hide the most personal material, especially romantic and sexual relationships that could not safely be written openly in that era. Decoding Anne Lister's diaries is different from decoding a single cipher letter, because this isn't a one-time reveal. It's a slow emergence of a person, a life that existed in private symbols, then became legible over time through transcription and research. And today, archives continue work to transcribe and make her diaries accessible, including the coded sections, because the code is part of the story, not just a barrier. This case carries a different kind of tension. Not who did it, but what did someone have to hide to feel safe? What does it mean that the code exists at all? Because the code isn't just encryption. It's evidence that truth had to be disguised to survive. And when you decode it, you're not only reading a diary, you're reading a workaround for living. Next case, a decoded telegram so consequential it helped tilt public opinion toward war. Case 6, the Zimmermann telegram. In 1917, a coded telegram sent by German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann proposed a military alliance with Mexico against the United States. British intelligence intercepted it, and crucially, they decoded it. The decoded message proposed that if the U.S. entered the war, Mexico should attack, and Germany would support Mexico's efforts to regain territory. Once the decoded telegram became known, it inflamed public opinion in the United States and helped push the country toward entering World War I. This is decoding at the scale of nations, and what makes it work as a story is the chain of consequence. A message is sent in secret code. It is intercepted, it is decoded, and the moment it becomes readable, it becomes explosive. A private message becomes public reality. This is one of the rare examples where the decoding doesn't just reveal meaning, it changes history. So the question isn't only what did it say, it's how many coded messages were intercepted and decoded that we never hear about, because the decoding prevented something before it happened? Next case, an ancient script on clay tablets that stayed unread for thousands of years, until one person proved it was Greek. Case 7. Linear B. For decades, archaeologists had clay tablets covered in a script called Linear B. They could catalog the symbols. They could count patterns, but they couldn't read it. Then in 1952, architect and cryptographer Michael Ventris deciphered Linear B and demonstrated it was an early form of Greek. That changed everything, because it meant those tablets weren't mystical inscriptions. They were records, administrative lists, names, goods, a functioning bureaucratic world. Deciphering Linear B didn't just solve a riddle. It made a lost civilization speak in its own words, and it showed something that decoding mysteries always reveal. The mysterious is often ordinary, once you can finally read it. Which is the most haunting idea of all. What looks like mystery might just be a grocery list, written in a language no one alive can understand. Next case, the ultimate decoding artifact, a broken stone that helped unlock Egyptian hieroglyphs. Case 8, the Rosetta Stone, key to decipherment. The Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous objects in the world, not because it is beautiful, but because it is practical. It carries the same message written in 3 scripts, including Greek, which scholars could read. That connection provided a crucial key that helped experts learn to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. For centuries, hieroglyphs were a silent wall, a civilization's writing that no one could interpret. And then, a broken stone helped reopen it. The Rosetta Stone reminds you that sometimes the decoding isn't one genius moment. It's a chain of insight. People comparing scripts, testing hypotheses, slowly proving what symbols mean. And once the script becomes readable, a civilization becomes accessible again. Names, prayers, records, the ordinary and the sacred. It's hard to overstate what that means, because when writing dies, a culture's voice becomes a rumor. Decoding brings it back, and that's the closing thought of this entire hour. Every decoded mystery is proof that silence doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes it means the message is still there, waiting for the right mind to finally understand it. If you want more case files and interesting videos like this, subscribe.